Ms. Williams, thanks very much for your time. Themba Masango decrying the fact that the Minister for Women and Children, Minister of Justice, Minister of Women in the Presidency, Social Development, that there has been no strong statement, nothing in particular about this horrific incident over the weekend.
Hello? Is it for...
Ms. Williams, you are live on ENCA now.
Okay.
Your reaction to this criticism around government's lack of a response?
I'm battling with the sound, and I think you will pardon me if I'm not responding according to the question. But what we want to say as government is that it's not quite true that we have not responded as government, because I think one of the first things that we should acknowledge that the perpetrator is behind bars because the government has intervened. And we should secondly commend the patrons of the Dros who have almost like became the community that responded and worked and assisted the police to make sure that the perpetrator is arrested. But not only that, we have condemned in the strongest term any a violation of the rights of the most vulnerable of our society, women and the children in particular. But what we have said also, because we have responded and we've responded on the social media to say, yes, whilst the community are outraged, which equally they are justified to be outraged, we need to be also conscious of the fact that justice should be seen to be done towards the victim. We cannot have a situation where we violate the terrain which will assist in making sure that justice is done. And that's what we were calling upon on our social media, in our government handle, to say, yes, this community has a right to be outraged in the same way that we are also all outraged. But I think we have a duty to protect that child who has been violated, but also we have to make sure that the law takes its course. We shouldn't find ourselves a couple of months down the line that the perpetrator is out because of the mistakes that we have done. We still have a rule of law. We should make sure that this child's right is protected, and then justice has been emitted towards the perpetrator of this heinous crime.
Ms. Williams, I want to just double check that you can hear me before I ask you another question.
I am hearing you, but faintly, so I will try and respond, but I think you will have to pardon me if I miss the point.
I want to just ask you whether you think a tweet on social media is enough of a response to what happened in Silverton in Pretoria. We have political appointments responsible for fighting for the rights of women and children who, by all accounts, are under attack in this country. We've all seen the statistics. The crime stats were released not too long ago. Those people appointed to fight specifically for that 7-year-old girl who could not fight for herself. Should those people not be more visible as we continue to say we're banding together as a country to fight against violence against women and children?
You know, I think for me, my first response, if I did understand you correct, is that government has responded. The perpetrator is behind bars. That's the starting point. The advocacy of protecting the right of the children has always been in our messaging. We always respond and we continue to condemn and we continue to seek society to work with the law enforcement agencies in protecting the right of the child. And what is pleasing at this point is that the patrons of that tavern have intervened and they have worked with the government in making sure that the perpetrator has been apprehended. So I think that, for me, is a starting point. Whether have we done what is expected to be done to apprehend the perpetrator, and which is what we have done. And yes, we continue to condemn, and I think we also want to continue to appreciate the outrage by society. But I think for us, it would not be enough for us to just issue the statement. But what would be encouraging for society is whether we are seen to have done something in apprehending the perpetrator. And that's where I am coming from.
So the person, for example, the Minister of Women in the presidency, you think that a deafening silence from that department, which was established for this exact reason, that is something that is acceptable?
I'm not going to speak for the Department of Women at this point. You have asked me whether have the government responded. And the government, even if the Women's Ministry had issued a statement, I think what would really give society some kind of comfort is whether have we done something. And we have done that something, and we have arrested, and we are going to even assure society that we will not rest until we make sure that justice has been served and for the sake of this child.
All right, well, thanks very much for your time. Phumla Williams speaking on behalf of government there, responding to criticism around government's so-called lack of a response. That's according to the Not In My Name movement. Phumla Williams says government has responded via social media, whether those portfolios specifically tasked with dealing with the challenges, the gross human rights violations that women and children continue to face in South Africa, whether those departments have responded or not, is not her mandate to speak on.